It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. In 1861, 32 students and 2 teachers from the high school in Rippey, Iowa, left to enlist in the Union Army. The school closed behind them, and 11 of these young soldiers never came home. The story of the Schoolboy Soldiers had largely been forgotten until writer and local historian Chuck Offenburger shared it with Dena Boyd's history class at Greene County High School. The students didn't just get excited about researching and learning about the Civil War soldiers. They became educators, reenactors, and led the effort to build permanent memorials. This hour, we'll learn about this story and the movement the students helped to spark. In a few minutes, I'll talk with student Oliver Harris and Mary Weaver of the Greene County Historical Society. My first guests today are Chuck Offenburger and Dena Boyd. Chuck is a well-known Iowa writer and local historian. These days he's publishing on Substack as part of the Iowa Writers Collaborative and at offenburger.com. Hello, Chuck.
Hi, Charity. Great to talk to you again.
It's wonderful to have you here. Dena Boyd is also here. She is a social studies teacher at Greene County High School in Jefferson. Hello, Dena.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having us.
And Dena, you teach an Iowa history class. That's an elective class. That's where this all began. So you invited Chuck to come talk to your students. Tell me about your hopes for that occasion.
Absolutely. I invited Chuck because I knew he had a great story when it came to Iowa in general. And then I knew that he was connected with the local historical society. And so he came and told our students a little bit about himself, and then he shared this story, and it really took off.
And Chuck, Dena said maybe you could share a story that might connect with high school students of today.
She said, I think specifically, she said, if you know a story in local history that would impact high school students of today, tell it. This would be a good time to tell it. And I did that. It sure did.
It sure did.
I've spent a whole lot of time on this story since then, and it's been fascinating.
So, Chuck, when did you first learn about the Schoolboys of Rippey?
Charity, I think I was on the board of the Greene County. You know, I moved to the Jefferson area. Cooper, Iowa is where I was living, and I moved there in 2004, and I think I was on the board of the Historical Society for a good 10 years, 15 years, something like that. And one time we had a Civil War program, a Civil War-oriented program, and in the course of that, it came up that we had this memoir in the files at the Historical Society at the museum in Jefferson, a memoir written by a man named Gillum Tolliver, who turns out to be one of the schoolboy soldiers we're going to be talking about today. And he came home from the Civil War. He survived. He came home, and he was an attorney, well-educated man, a real community leader through the rest of his life, which extended into like the 1930s or 40, or maybe almost 40. And he, from about 1880 to about 1920, he got involved in writing this memoir. And it included, a huge part of it was about the service in the Civil War. And so when I first heard about that, I thought, God, I got to read this. And so I checked it out from the museum and read it, and I was just absolutely fascinated. And it turns out that in the 1990s, a couple had moved into this house just north of the business district in Jefferson, and as they were sorting through things, they're up in the attic, and they find this stash of memorabilia from somebody, and they found it, and in it was this handwritten memoir by Gillum Tolliver. And these people thought, oh my goodness, what do we have here? And so they took it to a history teacher at Greene County High School then. It was Jefferson High School then, Dale Allensworth, and he looked at it, and he was equally stunned, and he traced the history of that family of Gillum Tolliver and found out that John Milligan, the current city engineer in Jefferson at that time, was the great-great-grandson of Gillum Tolliver.
Oh, wow.
So he got that memoir to John Milligan, who then had it transcribed and typed, and so we have a couple of copies of that now, and that triggered my interest, and it also indirectly triggers the interest of the students years later, because that became a great resource for them as they put this story together.
So Families that have a long history in Iowa that were here in the 1850s, 1860s, if you know your family history, you probably know something about someone who enlisted in the Civil War, because approximately 76,000 Iowans served. That was over half of the state's military-age male population. It was an enormous effort. What makes this story stand out to you, Chuck?
Well, the fact that the thing that really grabbed me about it was these soldiers were particularly young. They were pioneers. Greene County, the first settler came in 1849, and then they trickled in for the next few years into the 1850s, and the county was chartered in 1854. So we are talking about. This is real pioneer time for Greene County. And the community of Rippey, which was 3 miles west of where Rippey is today, it moved for the railroad in the 1870s. But at this point in the 1850s, these are pioneers. And a lot of these young people had never been to school as their families moved west. And so in the history of that school, before they went to the war, Azor Mills later recounted that he'd had 60-some students, and they had ranged in age from 10 to 25. So imagine that. The people in their 18, 19, 20, early 20s going to school for the first time. So, these are really students.
Right.
And
taking advantage of an opportunity that they hadn't had.
And a few alumni. So that really intrigued me, and that they shut down the school in a way they went. We're finding out sometime later that made it a big factor in this might well have been the interest in the abolition movement in the United States at the time. It seems pretty clear to us that Azor Mills, the teacher who had come from New York, had come from Ohio, but originated in Connecticut, was moving along with the people who were integral in the movement led by abolitionist John Brown. Who most people will recognize that name as being very much involved in the early history of the U.S. and Civil War. So all of that, you put all that together, but the idea of young people committing their lives to the cause at that time is inspiring.
Dena, when Chuck was sharing this history with your class, I know as a teacher, you can see when the students really are connecting. What did you witness?
Well, you'll get a chance to talk to Oliver, and he is the student who really took a hold of this story and said, let's do something. There's a monument. Surely there's a monument for this story to commemorate this. And both Chuck and I said, I didn't know for sure. And Chuck said, no, there's not. And Oliver said, well, can we make one? And we said, well, yeah, let's do it. And what are the steps we need to take? And let's reach out and see if we can get this moving. And so the kids were taken aback by the students of 1861 and 62 of their willingness to serve when this war is far away from them. We're in Greene County, which is newly. Well, not even yet established, but a pioneer community. And these are students who would give up their future, give up their life, and go fight for the cause and to keep the Union together. And so the fact that the students took a hold of this story and said, let's do something about it. Let's bring this story back. As a teacher, man, that's what you ask for.
Absolutely. Well, and this is an elective course, so you have the opportunity to create the curriculum, which in other social studies courses, of course, you have some very specific requirements.
Absolutely.
That you need to hit. So you had this freedom. I can imagine that this kind of rewrote all of your plans.
It absolutely did. The following semester that I taught Iowa history was completely about the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey. And the next semester that we'll be back to school in a couple weeks, we're right on it again.
So We're going to bring Oliver into the conversation after our break. But Dena, as you saw the students dig into this and really connect, and we'll talk about some of the many things that they did, including reenactments and studying the biography of individual soldiers and all kinds of really incredible things. As a teacher, what did you think? Here you are digging into one specific story, but of course the ripple effects are great. What did you think, what will get my students get out of this?
Yeah, it really became more than just a lesson in history. It was, we're going to learn about military. We're going to learn about old weapons and the construction of them. In fact, we had students work in the shop to build replica rifles that they could use to drill. We learned business aspect as we met with Jefferson Monument Works. We learned journalism through working with Chuck. About local government. We had to meet with the county board of supervisors. Art. Our artist drew a drawing of a soldier that would be on the monument. Drama. As we get moving forward, there's a play that's being written about this. And then geography, too, with our soldiers marching down to Cape Girardeau and through different battlefields throughout. This became far more than a textbook story.
I can imagine that it was transformative in many ways. Students sit in class, they hear things, they read their textbooks, they take their tests. But in seeing the students engage in that way, and this is something they'll remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I sure hope so. We were able to get out to the cemetery and see the gravestones of some of our soldiers. We got to go out to the park and march as a unit. I fed them some hardtack, which they weren't too excited about, and some cornbread, and they got to see what it was like.
Short of the dysentery, I hope. But
yes, definitely. See as best of what it was like.
Right. We will take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. This hour, we are learning about the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey and how a group of students and residents of Greene County have worked together to keep this story alive and memorialize these soldiers. More in a moment. This is Talk of Iowa from IPR News. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. In 1861 and 1862, 32 students and 2 teachers from the high school in Rippey, Iowa, left to enlist in the Union Army. The school closed behind them, and 11 of those soldiers never came home. The story of the Schoolboy Soldiers is being remembered and memorialized thanks to the efforts of local historian Chuck Offenburger, Dena Boyd, a social studies teacher at Greene County High School, her students, and many other members of the community who have gotten together to found the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee. And Chuck Offenburger, writer and local historian, is here with us. Dena Boyd is also here with us. And I want to bring Oliver Harris into the conversation now. Oliver Harris was a student in Dena Boyd's Iowa history class when Chuck Offenburger came to speak and shared the outline of this story of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey. He is now a sophomore at Iowa State University studying computer engineering and still working to memorialize these soldiers. Hello, Oliver.
Hi.
Thank you so
Hope
much
you're having
for
a good
being
day.
here. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Take us back in brief time to that class when Chuck spoke to your class. You clearly made a very strong connection with the story and got really excited about it. Tell me what was going on in your head.
Of course. I can't really say for certain because it's been 2 years now, or like a year. I don't know. Time flies. Sorry. I was definitely very shocked when he started speaking about it, and I don't know if like that time I was watching a bunch of videos about memorials or something like that, but I vaguely recall that. So it was kind of just already in my head of like memorials, and I just kind of figured that this would be something that would have one. And it was very striking to me, the story. And I don't know if that was because I was going into college and was going to start paying for classes and schooling like many of these men did themselves. And so it was just kind of like put myself in their shoes there for a second of like, wow, you know, these guys really joined the Army, gave up their future and education to go serve something so selflessly. And it just was kind of very shocking and striking to me that this hasn't been represented in a memorial or like just a story that a lot of people can know about.
As you and your classmates started really exploring this history, am I right that each one of you was assigned a soldier to really research and understand?
Yeah, so originally, my year, I just kind of got with a group of guys, and we kind of just did the research to find all the names. And then the following year, they did all the research on the individual people. But I still have like some knowledge on some of them.
Sure. Is there an individual that kind of resonated with you that sticks out in your mind that you could tell us about?
Well, I have a James W. Smith with me, and so he's one of the 32, obviously. And he's actually from Illinois, but he moved to Rippey and Greene County eventually, and then joined in 62. He actually lost his arm in a battle, and not funnily, but interestingly, Azor Mills took the same bullet and it hit Azor Mills in the arm, then went into James W. Smith's arm, and so he's actually an amputee. Then he still served after losing his arm, which is I found shocking. I thought he'd head back home, but he actually still served and fought another battle afterwards. And then he went back home and then just farmed the rest of his life. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dena, as this progressed, and again, the next semester students sort of took on the task of researching these individual soldiers. Tell me a little bit about the progression. As obviously Oliver and his classmates were researching about all of the soldiers, and then the students kind of dug in more personally later. Tell me about what the students did as time went on.
Yeah, no, this is a totally different kind of research than students today are used to. There is no Wikipedia page about these soldiers. So we had to go back, and really our linchpin was Diane People. And she's at the Historical Society, and she has dug up the stories of all of these 34 individuals. And so she gave us a little blurb about each one, and we were able to continue that research through various websites, Find a Grave, various books written way back in 1907, different histories of the county. And so it was a research lesson as well as the content. How do we continue to dig in to this research when we hit a roadblock? And what if a name isn't quite the same as it appears on the gravestone? Well, that could be just a typo. I mean, there are a lot of different aspects of research and then historical things that we have to discuss too. But Diane really helped us immensely with the research.
And then as things progressed, I mean, you have gotten Civil War replica uniforms and equipment, and your students have really become reenactors.
They have, yeah. We were shipped our uniforms, and when the kids opened them up, they immediately put on the hat and the coat, and then we got some that weren't quite right, and they said, these aren't good. We need to send these back and get some better ones. And so they really enjoyed opening those up and then trying those on too.
So Oliver, you are one of the founding members of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee. Even though you've gone off to college, you have a lot of things going on. You've stayed engaged in this effort to make these memorials, 2 memorials, we'll talk more specifically about them in a moment, a reality. Why is this so important to you?
Well, I've always just been really interested in history, but this is more important to me because it's just the story is very profound in its nature, and it's I think can really just speak to a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and like the bravery that these guys had, and just the willingness to join and to put themselves up and their lives on the line, and to just really just stop and give up their future and just go do something. And I think that can speak to a lot of people in a lot of different ways, and I think it's just an important story to get out because, this is our story, but this is also definitely stories of many other towns and areas in the country during that time. And I think that is just a nice way to bring light to a community and to people that weren't known as much beforehand. And, memorials are just a cool way to do that, and will hopefully be something I can come back to and see and, show off and stuff. So I just think it's really important to share history, and especially one that is this, I think, interesting and exciting.
You've also been involved in the reenactments. What is it like to put on a Union Army uniform and think about what these soldiers experienced?
Well, it's a bit hot sometimes, I'll say that, and it's actually pretty nice. I like it. It's pretty comfy, and I don't know. I sometimes in the marches when I'll carry the musket and I'll walk like a mile or something like that, and my arms get tired and start getting pretty sore from having to be extended and hold on to this decently heavy musket. And I just started thinking back of dang, these guys marched, hundreds of miles, and with this thing, and I can't march 1 mile, and it was just kind of just kind of interesting trying to think of the life that they lived and how strikingly different it is from the life that I live now and just kind of the things they went through. It was just kind of very interesting, and it just kind of got me realizing a bunch of different things about my life and just life in general.
Does it change now that you've had this really deep engagement in this experience? Does it kind of change your worldview and how you think about the news and current events?
Yeah, I can say definitely a bit. I've never been huge into politics and news and stuff, but I try to keep a pretty a decent amount of knowledge on it. But it definitely just gets you thinking about a lot of different things, and you read the news and it's just some people and stuff like that. But once you learn a story like this of 34 people, 32 students, teacher, and a director, all who in this small town, it just kind of gets you realizing that each one of these people that you hear about is someone else. They have their own things, own personality, their own person. Kind of stops being numbers and actual people.
What do your friends and classmates at Iowa State think about the fact that a future computer engineer is spending a lot of his time investing in this project?
Well, honestly, I've told very few people about it. I've told a lot of my friends, and a few of them are just jealous and telling me this is going to look great on my resume. And hopefully, probably not for computer engineering, but in terms of my mindset and skills you can't teach, I think that'll help me a lot in. But they really find it fascinating. I know a lot of them are very find it cool that I'm doing stuff like this, and some of them are a bit jealous that I'd be able to hopefully get a job, because of this. And it's just really cool to see other people interested in it as well.
Yeah, maybe you'll inspire some other Cyclone Civil War reenactors.
Yeah, hopefully maybe start the club.
All right, well, thank you so much for talking with me, Oliver, and congratulations. You've made such a difference with your efforts.
Of course, thank you.
Oliver Harris was a student in Dena Boyd's Iowa history class back when Chuck Offenburger came to speak. He's now a sophomore at Iowa State University studying computer engineering. And Dena, I can imagine, obviously Oliver has really taken this to heart and invested so much time and energy, but you've had many students who have really committed to this as well. How does that feel to you?
Oh, it's fun. I've had students that I didn't anticipate would get a hold of this story and really latch on and engage so much in it. And then I had excellent students who took a lead role as well. Everything from the designing of the monument to drawing the image of the soldier to just being a consistent member and marching in the parade or holding the antique drum that we have, the replica drum that we bought to march in parades as a unit. Everybody has stepped up in different ways, and it's been fun to see.
Tell me about the memorials. This is still a work in progress. We can talk more about that in a moment. But the intention is to erect 2 memorials. Tell me about them.
Yes, 2 9-foot obelisk monuments will be built to tell the story. One will be at the old Rippey Cemetery, which is just about the same location of where the school was. And then one will be on the county courthouse grounds. And the monument was designed by the student Aidan Bardole, who actually has a great history himself, as his family is a fourth generation, I believe, a farmer in the area. So that's neat. He's designed it, and then another student, Lila Osterson, drew the image, and it has the names of all 34 soldiers who went off to the war based on their unit. It has the history of Greene County during the Civil War on one of the sides, and then the story of the 34 soldiers as well.
And right now, the granite is stuck in the Straits of Hormuz?
That's what we're hearing, yes. These are massive, massive chunks of granite. So, the shipping has been delayed, I suppose.
So I know that's got to be incredibly frustrating, but Dena, you are a social studies teacher. Do you also love the fact that you get to tell your students that this project that they are working on is being directly affected by current events and
it is.
Yeah, decisions made by world leaders right now?
Yes.
Fascinating. All right, we are going to bring somebody else into the conversation now. Mary Weaver lives in Greene County. Her family has a long history there. And she is also a member of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee and the Greene County Historical Society. Hello, Mary.
Good morning, Charity. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you so much for being here. And now this is a story, having lived in Greene County, this was a story that you were pretty familiar with. Tell me when you learned about these soldiers.
Well, our family has been in Greene County for 4 generations, and if I count my son and my granddaughter, we can go to 6. So I was really interested because my great-uncle, Thomas Turpin, was one of the original schoolboy soldiers. He volunteered at age 18, went off to the service as a volunteer in the War of the Rebellion with the other 32 soldiers, and then was marched off to Cape Girardeau, and then before he ever saw a battle, he died of the measles. He died on Christmas Day. And I keep thinking about his mother. He was the firstborn child of that family, the only male that was in their family. And then, his body was never returned. He's buried at Pilot Mound in Illinois. So it has to be a heart-rending story, and it's something that just keeps resonating with me.
So when you learned that students were interested in this story, and not just interested, but committed to making sure that the story is told and memorialized, what was your reaction?
I really wanted to help. I had been on the Historical Society board and had been fortunate enough to write some grants that were fulfilled. And so when Chuck got in touch with me, it was like twofold. I could be interested because of my relative and then also help, hopefully, financially. And then as an economic development effort, it was going to be good for our little community.
And you've done so much research and so much work on this. You have a sort of a favorite anecdote about these soldiers. These were not wealthy soldiers. These were rural people scratching out a living on the land. Tell me about their boots or lack thereof.
Oh, thank you for giving me that opportunity, Charity. The soldiers that were coming out of the school with Azar Mills and Isaac Brown were really very poor. They were pioneers. They were early settlers within Greene County. And while they could march and do their maneuvers, they thought perhaps they shouldn't be in the exhibition that was going to be held in Jefferson on the 4th of July prior to their being inducted. So because they didn't have boots, they were really worried and thought, maybe we shouldn't go. Well, the doctor, the local physician within the community said, why don't you just blacken your feet? And so we have to assume that they use some sort of ashes or maybe some stains from wood trees. But anyway, they blackened their feet and did so well in the maneuvers that one of the reports from E.B. Stillman, which was published in 1907 about them, was that the observers participated and said, they really did a good job with their maneuvers. Well, partially because they were barefooted.
Right. They had manual dexterity the other soldiers couldn't have. Well, stay with us, Mary. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. Mary Weaver is also a member of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee, along with Chuck Offenburger and Dena Boyd. We will all be back after a break. We're learning about this story and about the efforts in Greene County to memorialize the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey. This is Talk of Iowa from IPR News. It's Talk of Iowa from IPR News. I'm Charity Nebbe. In 1861 and 1862, 32 students and 2 teachers from the high school in Rippey, Iowa, left to enlist in the Union Army. The school closed behind them, and 11 of those soldiers never came home. Back in the spring of 2025, writer and local historian Chuck Offenburger visited Dena Boyd's Iowa history class at Greene County High School and shared this story with the students. The students got excited about learning about this part of history, and not just learning about it, but they wanted to memorialize these soldiers in a permanent way. They helped to found the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee. Chuck Offenburger is here with me, Dena Boyd is here with me, and Mary Weaver, who is also a member of this committee and a member of the Greene County Historical Society and has a long history in Greene County. And to catch up to where we are now, Mary, when they brought you on as an experienced grant writer, you really started investing in the efforts to raise enough money to make these 2 granite memorials a possibility. What has the response been like from the community?
Oh, it's just been absolutely amazing, Charity. First of all, those monuments are costing $81,000. So we're eager to get them back and get them here so we can have the dedication both at the Old Rippey Cemetery and at the courthouse. But our entire budget is about $120,000 right now. We have been so fortunate to receive funding from individuals up to $20,000 in total, local Rotary Club, Lions Club, in addition to our Board of Supervisors, have all pitched in financially. Our largest donation came from our Greene County Gaming Corporation when they gave us $45,000. But we also have State of Iowa people helping us, the State Historical Society and the Iowa Arts Partnership Grant with Iowa Economic Development Authority. So we've really been fortunate to generate that much funding. We will, and I'm going to give a little plug here, we have a T-shirt that we're selling that has the names of all of the schoolboy soldiers on the reverse, and then on the front at the pocket it shows a schoolboy soldier holding a rifle. That was the drawing that Lila had created. So we have those available, and we'll ship them to you for $25, or if you want to come to Jefferson and come to the museum, we'll be glad to give you one there. The museum has artifacts from the Civil War. We have a Civil War sword that was used. We have the drum that was created by one of the fathers of the Civil War boys from Rippey. And so those are available to be observed and seen and touched. The museum hours are on Wednesday and Saturday, or they can be open by appointment if you give us a call. And we have a website, and so you can find that number there.
Oh, Mary, I mean, obviously you are committed to local history and you're deeply committed to the community. This memorial will also memorialize one of your family, I guess your ancestors, not a direct ancestor, but what does it mean to you to see the community coming together in this way?
Oh, it's so exciting. Rippey is a very small town. One of the original towns, really, in Greene County, but it was settled along the river. And then when the railroad came in the 1870s, it picked up and actually moved to the railroad site. But when we think about our little town, along in World War II, there were what they call the auction sales, machinery sales. Then in the 50s and 60s, it was baseball. Now people think about Rippey as the earliest ride for bikes, the Burr
ride. Yep.
Yes, and the bike ride to Rippey from Perry. And now we're going to have another thing that we can show and talk about Rippey. On our main street, we have a memorial marker that talks very briefly about the Schoolboy Soldiers, but then it also gives directions to the old Rippey Cemetery, where once our markers become available, then the whole story will be out there at the old Rippey Cemetery. So it's a big economic development for our little town, and we're very happy.
Mary Weaver, thank you so much for talking with me, and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mary Weaver lives in Greene County. She is a member of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey Memorial Committee and the Greene County Historical Society. And Chuck Offenburger and Dena Boyd are still with me. And Chuck, I know you're a local historian. You're a writer. You have amplified this story and the work of these students and community members. But you are also someone who just believes deeply in the power of community and bringing people together. What are you feeling as you've watched this evolve and been a part of it?
Well, Charity, this is probably one of the more successful projects I've ever been involved in, and I've been involved in several of them around the state over the years. I love the way the students you get students involved, and you also get their parents and their grandparents and their families involved. And I've loved seeing that. But I also have loved the idea. One thing that I've really admired is the way we have turned this into a much larger educational thing than I ever imagined going into it. And Dena is a tremendous teacher, tremendous history teacher. But the idea of showing the students, who Dena mentioned the Board of Supervisors earlier, and we've been to half a dozen of their meetings as we've gotten this permission to do this on the courthouse lawn. And the various other committees that we've been involved in appearing in front of to, ask for financial support, and then turn that around and be able to show the students what it's like putting together a big project, especially in a small town. And I think one lesson that I hope they'll take from it that it's something that I believed in over my years around the state of Iowa is, when you think about a project like this, don't be afraid to let it get big. And secondly, if it's a good enough project, the money will be there. You'll be able to get the money because people will come to believe in it. And once the story was the most undertold and underappreciated story in Greene County history. I said that many times over our campaign. But now that we've gotten it, now that we've told the story, it is appreciated because the people have really stepped up. And I'm talking about coast to coast. We've had contributions from across this country for this campaign, and it's really been gratifying to see it happen.
Well, speaking of don't be afraid to get big, this has also inspired the writing of a play that will be performed at Greene County High School in November. Chuck, I want Dena to talk about that as well, but how did that happen?
Well, I know John Busby, who's a playwright in Des Moines. He's the Iowa Cultural Buzz, as he calls himself. And I know he's a playwright, and I know he'd written some stuff for the community players in Greenfield, Iowa, and about Second World War history on the home front for that community in plays. And so I mentioned to him, and also he'd been involved in Southeast Iowa in the recognition of the Littleton brothers, who were 6 brothers in one family who were Civil War victims. And he was involved in helping getting a monument established down there in Toolsboro, Iowa. And so I asked him if he'd be interested in this, and he has jumped on it. And Charity, I really think the play might be the biggest step of this whole project that we've done here, because it is really going to take the story of the Schoolboy Soldiers of Rippey to a wide audience, I believe, over time.
Dena, I know that obviously that'll be something that students who are not in your class will get involved in. I mean, this story is really spreading school-wide in many ways. Tell me what else you're seeing.
Yeah, John Busby has been really great. He's even helped with, he's asked us for facts for our history to include in the play. And so the students, as they did their research, got to send him an email and say, hey, did you know that 22 of the 32 boys they fought alongside a brother? Or something like, well, the widow of Isaac Brown, who was the subdirector, because her husband died during the war, she ended up marrying another soldier who was in the war, John B. John. So little stories like that John Busby is going to include in the play are really, really neat. Another aspect of the play that we are very excited about is we've got two local musicians who are going to be the underscoring of the play. And I'm going to actually hand it over to Chuck to tell you more about them.
Charity, this just came together last week, and you know these people. They're the Weary Ramblers, Chad Elliott and Catherine Severing Fox, whose careers have just taken off as this musical duo, performing all over the country all the time. And Chad's got a daughter that's a sophomore in high school at Greene County High School, and so we approached him, and we knew he had been involved. He'd written Civil War-related music before, specifically for the dedication of the Littleton Brothers Monument down in southeast Iowa. So we just have talked to the Chad and Catherine about getting involved and doing the music that will be the theme music that goes with this play in November, and they've agreed to do that. And that's going to add a whole new element to this story, I think.
So, Chuck, I'm sensing that you are not expecting this play to just be performed at Greene County High School. What are your hopes as this play goes out in the world?
Well, I don't want to put any pressure on my fellow writer, John Busby, but I think it could be a big story. I think it could be. There are so many elements of this story that are inspiring about community, big project, proper recognition of the people whose shoulders we stand upon in our communities. There's so many elements of this story that are going to be very appealing that I think there will be many audiences, many different places that will see this play eventually. And
coming up also in October, Dena, the students and other members of the Rippey Memorial Committee, the reenactors as well, have an opportunity to be part of Iowa's America's Harvest Festival. That's coming up at the state capitol on October 24th.
Yes. Hopefully we'll have 34 in uniform, and we'll be able to come down to the state capitol and be a part of this celebration. I don't know exactly what all it entails, but we're excited to be included.
Well, and Dena, I've seen video of the reenactment, in various different times. These are boys and girls who are involved in the reenactment. Obviously, they were young men or boys who went off to war, but you've made this really an inclusive environment for all of your students to be able to engage and get involved, right?
Absolutely. The girls are just as fascinated as the guys. I mean, the girls understand as well how important the schoolboy soldiers were, so they get to be a part of it, and it's special.
So looking to the future, as you teach this Iowa history class, do you feel like this story keeps on giving to your students, or are you going to uncover something else about Greene County history?
I'm sure we'll uncover more. But this will be a unit that won't go away, and we'll be able to bring my class into uniform and get to shoot a musket and do a little reenactment every year now. And then, who knows? Maybe we'll come across another story, dig something else up that becomes big as well. We'll see.
What do you hope your students take away from this experience? I mean, certainly they're going to have a better understanding of this period in history and a more personal connection with, when we talk about numbers of soldiers who went off to war, the numbers of soldiers who died in the Civil War. Those numbers are so overwhelming, but if you can think about it on a personal level, that changes your understanding of history. What do you hope they carry with them from this experience?
First off, I hope they have a greater appreciation for local history, that these kinds of heroic stories can come out of little Rippey, Iowa. Second, that they understand that, man, all I have to do is march around a town holding a musket for 1 mile. These guys marched hundreds of miles. But my life's not too bad. And those two things right there. And third, that there are great stories that happened right here. And we are where we are because of the soldiers who came ahead of us and walked on the very same streets that we do.
The students who have been involved in creating this memorial committee, involved in creating these memorials that hopefully eventually will arrive in Iowa as hopefully traffic moves through the Straits of Hormuz. They've also been a part of really affecting change and rallying their community. And outside of history lessons, I mean, that feels like a powerful lesson as well, Dena.
It is. The way that we've been able to involve everybody from working in the shop and building our replica rifles to meeting with state legislators, we've really been able to do much more than just tell the story, and the kids get to be a part of it. They get to take an active role in it, and maybe there'll be an acting role in the play coming up this fall. So we're excited to debut. That world premiere will be really fun.
And Chuck, through your columns, you haven't just been telling the stories of the schoolboy soldiers of Rippey. You've been telling the stories of these Greene County students and what they've been able to accomplish today. What do you want everybody to take away from this story?
Well, I was just thinking, Charity, that these schoolboy soldiers of Rippey, I'm talking about the Civil War soldiers who came home, those who survived, many of them became the most prominent citizens in the development of Greene County in the years from 1865 to 1920 or so, when they started passing away. And I hope that the schoolboy soldiers of today, I'm talking about Dena's students who have put this together, I hope that years from now, we're going to look at a number of them and say, they're the leaders of our community today, and they got started in this story that's 165 years old.
Chuck Offenburger, thank you so much for being here today.
Great to talk to you.
Dena Boyd, thank you.
Thanks for sharing our story.
Writer and local historian Chuck Offenburger and Dena Boyd, social studies teacher at Greene County High School in Jefferson. We've been talking about the schoolboy soldiers of Rippey.